Before I open the hearing for the Barnstable Conservation Commission, I would like to ask Angela to do a roll call for the quorum purpose.
Thank you. Abadili.
Present.
Foster.
Present.
Hearn.
Present.
Koshulik.
Present.
Lee.
Present.
Tangney present. Administrator Ed Hoops.
Present.
Staff member Kim Kavanaugh.
Present.
We have 6 commissioners. We have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Acting under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and of Chapter 237 of the Code of Town of Barnstable, the Barnstable Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, May 13th, 2025, at 3 p.m. for the application of Barnstable County, Sharon Smith. This hearing is being recorded and broadcast on the Town of Barnstable's Government's Access Channel. The plans and application are on file and may be reviewed by scheduling appointments by sending an email request to @hoops@230 South Street, Hyannis. In accordance with the Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 20, please let the chair know if anyone is recording this hearing. Hearing none. This afternoon's hearing agenda is posted on the town's website. On the agenda, next to each application is the amount owed to the Town of Barnstable for the cost of advertisement. Please send the checks to the Conservation Division at 230 South Street before the hearing. Remote participations. The Conservation Commission's public hearing will be held by remote participation as a result of an act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed by the Governor on March 28, 2025, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. Remote public access to this hearing shall be provided in the following manner. 1. The hearing will be televised by Xfinity Channel 8 or High Definition 10, Channel 1072. It may also be accessed via Town of Barnstable's Government's Access Channel. 2. The real-time public comment can be addressed to the Conservation Commission utilizing the Zoom link 858-6999-8264 or use the toll-free phone number 888-475-4499 as shown on the agenda. 3rd, the public can also email the comments to edwin.hoops@town.barnstable.ma.us at least 8 hours prior to the hearing. This afternoon, we have 2 items under the revised plan. The first one is Austinville Bridge 9198 LLC SE3-6165. This is a reduced topography change at entry, porch, and stair. Then this is tabled from April the 15th, and the applicant has requested for a withdrawal. So this is gone. The second revised plan is Yuri and Yelena Muscovich. SE3-5908 is a hardscaping change, fence location correct, mitigations calculation confirmed, BBW line. Arlene?
Good afternoon. Arlene Wilson, AM Wilson Associates here for the Mitseviches. Let me see if I can share my screen.
Please.
Here we go. So this project is at 24 Flume Avenue in Marston's Mills. And these are a little cleanup issues. I think the project is just about ready to request a COC. So there are a few minor deviations that have occurred. The shape of the front walkway, which is partially within 100 feet of the wetland, is a little bit different than was originally proposed. It's a little bit wider and has curves at each end. There are 2 window wells that were constructed to allow for additional light in the basement. This is the access to the basement for predominantly for storage. Originally, the retaining walls on both sides were going to be curved. The more landward of the retaining walls got to be a little bit geometric. And they discovered that because of the amount of shade over there, it was essentially impossible to keep any grass there. And so to reduce the amount of dirt that was being tracked in. They put some paving stones in that access way. The shape of the property line fence on the west side got a little bit straighter. Part of the reason for that is that the original BVW flagging that had been done in about 2020 had not been done with any soils work. And we went back out after discussing this with Ed and reflagged this line using both vegetation and soils, which is the methodology that's been preferred for the last couple of years. Changed the line a little bit, and the property line fence skirts that BBW limit. There's also a gate in that fence right here that wasn't shown on the original plans. Poor John O'Day, who was responsible for these plans, went back and recalculated the required mitigation based on all of the hardscape that's on the site. And those revised numbers are on this plan, which is dated revised through the 10th of this month. What he came up with was a mitigation requirement of 3,998 square feet. And the mitigation that has been installed at the site is 6,496 square feet. So we're almost 2,500 square feet in excess of what's required for mitigation at this site. And I'd be, after last week's agenda meeting, there was a request to add the top of wall elevations, and a plan that has those elevations has been delivered to Ed for the file. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
And that revision date is still remaining at the 5/10, May 10th on the drawing itself.
That's correct.
Ed, I know you went out to the site. Do you have any comments to add or observations?
No, I checked the site and verified wetland line. It looks good. Arlene, I would ask, I didn't see it, and I apologize if you included it in the packet, but did you include any of the BVW for the new line?
Yes, there's a field report, a species list, and data sheets that were included with the application.
Okay, I'm sorry, I must have missed it somewhere in the packet, but I will verify that. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay.
Thanks, Ed. Luis?
Arlene, speak to me briefly about the gate.
About the gate?
I think you said you added a gate.
A gate right here. This piece is a chain link fence, and there is a wide gate at this location so that street furniture, chairs and toys for the kids and that kind of thing can be moved onto the beach more easily than they can down the fairly narrow stairs at this location.
Thank you.
Bill?
When this project first showed up, it was eradicating invasive species. And I remember that project and the outrage that happened with the neighbors, the locals on the pond. And it was like, well, there's going to be invasive species management, and we're going to then have lots of nice plantings in the area where you currently have stippled, grayish tone here. And when I went there just the other day, I noticed that the entire stippled area that is just landward of that long stone wall that has the gate on it there, as well as all of the stuff that's inside on the right side, as we're looking at this plan on the right side, it's all manicured hydrangea garden, all hydrangeas that are, nicely placed. And where are we going here?
Just some pictures of the planting areas.
Yeah, I'm not talking about any of where you are right now. No, no, no. No, on the right side. If you go back
On
up
the
to the
right
top,
side.
flip it up to the top.
Okay.
Flip it up to the top. Up at the top. See,
So
on
in
the
here.
right side, on right where that dot is, where you've got the cursor,
Yeah.
go landward of that
In
horizontal line. All of that area is a manicured hydrangea garden, as is the strip that's running horizontally across the front of that. And it's like evenly spaced, perfect, hydrangeas. They're all, call it 2.5 feet high, maybe something like that, 3 feet, 2.5 feet high. And it just does not strike me as being a natural vegetated buffer. It seems more like a garden that doesn't, it doesn't strike me as typical of the mitigation plantings that are allowed to simply grow wild, if you will. That was one concern that I had. And before addressing the hydrangea garden arrangement, by the way, I think that this, okay, keep going. Then waterward from that area down on the right side, I noticed that about half that area has, some plantings that are in, really white sand that it just does not look like, it looks like it may have just been done, but it's not like wild, natural vegetated buffer. And then in your text that you sent, it said the vegetated area of the beach has changed to accommodate changes in pond water elevations, which made it impossible to maintain shrubs and herbaceous materials in the lower beach. I'm not sure if that's the area you're talking about, but to my knowledge, the Mystic Lake, or is this on Middle Pond? This is on Middle Pond. Middle Pond's water surface elevations are, pretty much the same here. Yeah, granted, there is, with droughts, the water goes down, and when it's high water and lots of rain and whatnot, it comes up. But the pond is basically doing what the pond has done, and that text would suggest that, well, there was a plan to do mitigation, and you really couldn't do it. And I'm thinking what's up with that? A third point that I have is that I noticed that the patio, which was in yellow in the figure that you originally showed in your presentation, Arlene, calls for, it's in the 0 to 50. Yet if you look in the buffer calculations, which actually are, they're on the thing, it's on the project that we have, that's not in, you don't have that 0 to 50 patio listed as being in the 0 to 50 for as built. And then there is a patio, maybe, right below, if you scroll up slightly, that presumably is where, well, there you go, right there.
There.
Yeah, right there. There's no patio in the 0 to 50, although there is one built, but you've got the patio in the 50 to 100. You can see on that. So, I just wondered about that for your buffer zone calculations. I guess the thing that really kind of bothered me the most was the fact that this was a really kind of a wild scape fronting Middle Pond, and it turned into a manicured lawn with a big, stone edifice, if you will, and there really isn't the mitigation that I would have expected. It's more like garden area. Anyhow, if you could comment on those, thank you.
Um, Tom, do you want me to answer that now, or do you want to see if there are other questions?
Why don't you answer for now, and then we'll see,
Okay.
what other commission has any other comments.
So, in fact, Bill is correct when he says it looks like it was just recently planted. It was just recently planted, and it does take some time for those plants to fill in. The intent is not to continue to manicure, but instead to allow them to fill in. So if I seem to be having a little trouble with this, Diane. So in some of the photographs, what am I doing? What am I hitting?
You're just right clicking.
Okay. So let's see if we can get to those photographs. So in terms of the water elevations, the pond was down apparently pretty low when this project first got a permit. And by the way, the application was not predominantly for invasives control. It was predominantly to redo the old house that had been on the site and landscape, and the mitigation control was part, the invasives control was part of the mitigation for that project. So the plantings that got done, and you can see here in this photograph, this was a tree that had been planted a few months before, and these photographs were taken in June of 24. So this was planted in the spring of 24. And the pond elevation came up substantially. We obtained administrative approval to relocate these mitigation plants into the area that was above the water level. This is the area where you were concerned about mitigation plants being installed in what looked like sand. In fact, they were installed in what looked like sand. This had been part of a former beach, and it was replanted with transitional shrubs as part of the mitigation. Again, they haven't even been in for a year yet, and they will be allowed to naturalize and spread. There is demarcation that's gone on to make sure that the beach maintenance won't extend into that area. This is the area on the west side above the beach, but you can see from this photograph, again, plantings are fairly new. They've been installed in accordance with the spacing requirements of the the extension service, which the commission has adopted.
Arlene, may I make a comment? This lower picture that we're looking at, I think is fine. I think that what was done over there, I can see if allowed to grow, that's going to be great. The picture right above it with the sandy beach, when we were there, I just had the feeling that the mitigation area should have extended further towards where the camera picture was taken. In other words, you got a fairly large expanse of sand right there. There are some that were kind of in the back, if you will, and it just seemed, here we are in May of 2025, and it seemed like there just wasn't much growing there. And I'm wondering, so that's the comment on this beach. It doesn't look like it's that well planted, that much has been planted there. But again, it's up above the area on the lawn area where it's basically a hydrangea garden. But I like the area on the other side where that lower picture right now. That I have no problem with that.
Okay. There was a landscape plan for this project. it's on file, shows, and it's really a planting plan, unlike what I usually do. So the numbers of plants are there. They're all called out by type. They were approved both by the commission and by staff. I don't know what else to say, Bill, except that they will be allowed to naturalize. I'll go back out and check again. We're gonna, as I said, we're going to check for a COC shortly, and so the plant species and density will be part of the COC request more than this one, I think.
Okay.
That's, to some degree, that's correct, because that's a COC related question in terms of the planting. I mean, in this revised plan, those items that is being changed, I think that is the purpose, just to see whether that meets the commission's requirement and whether we can accept those changes.
What about the hydrangea? We haven't talked about the large hydrangea garden that is supposed to be a mitigation area.
Hydrangeas are on your list for appropriate plants, and their use was approved when the project was originally filed.
Oh, well, that's okay. I don't know what to say.
Well, we can take a look at it when they file the COC. At that point, I mean, the staff can double check on the planting species, what we have approved before. Angela.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with what Bill observed. I walked the property actually with the homeowner. He was called and he walked me down there. And there are hydrangeas on that upper level, but as long as they're not going to be putting mulch around it and they're going to let it naturalize and we're going to be able to monitor it, I'm going to say that's fine. My question was, he said that this project started because he's allergic to poison ivy. So this was all cleared due to poison ivy. And I'm afraid if we let it naturalize, if poison ivy does come back in that area, I just want to make sure that we are monitoring it, which I believe is what we do over the next 3 years, correct?
Correct.
Okay. That was all. I saw the same thing. The hydrangeas are all that are in there right now, but if they're going to leave it alone and not put mulch around it, I'm okay with this revision.
Thank you. Any other question from the commissioner? None?
I have one other comment, and that is that patio that is built over there in the 0 to 50 on the left side.
Yes.
It's almost like a, I want to say like a paved, it's almost like a paved driveway going into a lower, it's not a driveway technically, but it's a big, almost looks like a driveway with walls going down into the like basement area. And it's the fact that that was built, and it's really built well, and it's an expensive deal. If that was land that simply couldn't take grass, and now we're asked to approve that, I mean, it's like an after the fact thing where a large section of 0 to 50 was basically seriously paved over. It's more than a patio. It looks like an entryway to a formidable garage, but again, it's not. And the owner was there, and I said, is that a driveway going down? He says, no, it's an entrance to the lower story of the house. And so, if I vote, no, I don't like this, it's like, or if the commission says it, I mean, to have the guy take it out seems, doesn't seem right. But at the same time, just going ahead and building the thing, just building it, and then after the fact, go, wow, I was in the 0 to 50 and I put in this patio. It just doesn't seem right. It's a fait accompli. And I just suggest that to the commissioners who may or may not have seen that. That's a very formidable hardscape that's been put in there. And now we're asked to just, well, I'd be hard pressed to say, take it out, Yuri, because it's an expensive thing that went in there. It's a big thing. And yet it was done without any permit. I don't feel right about that. Anyway, just thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
As I noted before, the retaining walls around that area were actually permitted. And my understanding is that he does use that access for storage. So the beach furniture and the kayaks and stuff go in there. So the fact that it looks like an access to a garage is probably appropriate. Yes, it's very nice access to a
Yeah,
garage.
it is.
And, you know, the only other thing I would point out is that it's within the 50 to this little isolated wetland on the abutting property. It's substantially further away from the pond edge. And we've got, you know, almost 40% more mitigation than is actually required for this project. So it's not like there isn't any compensation.
Thank you, Arlene. Could I have a motion to approve the revised plan as requested?
So moved.
John's got his
John, I have
hand
a
up.
question.
I've lowered my
John?
hand. I would second the motion.
Roll call.
Abadili,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Hearn,
The old reluctant eye.
Koshulik,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
and Tangy. Aye, that's unanimous, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thanks, Arlene.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill.
We have two NOI. The first one is Barnstable County proposed installation of a permeable reactive barrier at the former municipal fire training facility to contain PFAS from groundwater and mitigates the transport of PFAS impacted groundwater towards public drinking water supply wells. Down gradient of the facility at 155 South Flint Rock Road, Barnstable, as shown in the assessors map 313, parcel 007. This is going to be Anthony.
Yeah, John Paquin here
John,
with
sorry.
GZA.
Oh.
Anthony got sidetracked today. He was called for jury duty.
Okay.
So other civic priorities come in. So he's not here today to present. So we will do our best to fill in for him.
Okay.
We have a group here that will be presenting to you. And we'll use my computer as the base. So we're not switching between shared files. I will share my screen now. And hopefully you are seeing my screen with the notice of intent. Yes?
Yes.
File? Okay, good. Great. So I'm sorry, did someone say something?
John,
Okay.
you might want to switch to presentation view.
Yeah.
Slideshow.
If I knew how to do, okay. Yeah, actually, I'm going to stick with what I have, I think. Because I can't make it go back. So I'm going to stick to what I have.
Okay.
Now I can't go back. Okay, so are you seeing my screens right now in regular view?
Yep.
Great,
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. So we'll just stick with what I have here. So right now I'll start. I'm a principal level person at GZA. I'm a hydrogeologist, and I'm serving as the overall project coordinator on behalf of the county. So I'll start it, and Paul Rizala, who is the county's assets and infrastructure manager, will also present a little bit about the history of the project. I'll come in and we'll talk a little bit about where we're going and why we need this work that we're requesting today. Steve Leckoff is another principal level reviewer and participant here. He's an ecological person. He'll come in and talk about the ecological aspects of the work. And then we'll finalize by having Dan Scanlon, who is our senior project manager, talk about the installation or the I should say the injection of the materials that we're proposing. So that's our agenda right now. So with that, I will start by talking a little bit. You know where the site is, I think. Anyone who's lived in the town probably knows where the site is. It's on the banks of Flint Rock Pond, and this is a large scale image. The pond is over here. The county's fire training facility was on the east bank of Flint Rock Pond. Surrounding landmarks to speak of is, Mary Dunn Pond over here to the southeast of the site here. With that, I'll ask Paul to, if you don't mind, Paul, giving us a little history about the operations of the site.
Yes. 1 second here. I lost the screen. Okay, how about that? So yes, I'm Paul Rizal, the Barnstable County Assets and Infrastructure Manager. And just quick history about the site. It was in operation in 1959, mainly to 1983 when it was owned and operated by others, but all of the fire departments on Cape Cod benefited from it, and some entities off Cape. So from 1987 to 2019, it was owned by the county, and it still remains owned by the county. It was a location that we used to educate and train firefighters and relevant staff for the benefit of Cape Cod. And the key thing to note is that from 1959 to 2009, we trained with AFFF, aqueous film forming foams, which contain PFAS in them at the site. So the fire departments would bring their foam, they would train, and then they would leave. The county hosted the site, but we did not purchase the foam, so therefore we have no records of how much foam was actually used in the site. And once it was determined that PFAS was a threat to the hazard and a threat to the environment, and to those in contact with it, we ceased the training in 2019 and stopped all water related exercises associated with it. So we get no further groundwater infiltration.
Great, thank you.
That's a really quick overview. So there's a lot more background to it, but
it certainly is. And I would encourage all members of the committee, if you have any questions, feel free to chime in and ask them right away. We don't mind that at all.
Okay.
We want you to understand where we're coming here. So if you have questions, let's discuss them right away. So
Angela, your hands is up.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, is this part of a grant, and is it a one-time grant, or is this continued?
Paul, do you want to answer that, or do you want me to take a stab at it?
Yep. So as far as funding, there are multiple components associated with it. Some of it is obviously funded through the county, and then this project in particular is associated with an ARPA funds that the county got back a few years ago.
Yeah.
And the county commissioners earmarked $4 million for the cleanup of this site at 155 South Flint Rock Road.
And that's guaranteed right now? Like there's not going to be a funding issue? I'm just quickly trying to understand with the way grants work. Short answer.
So under the previous administration, the funding was viewed to be guaranteed. We had to have it appropriated by by the end of December 2024 and spent by the end of December 2026. So we have a contract in place with a contractor who specializes in this, permeable reactive barrier work, which we could, John and GZA will talk about. But we have a contract in place for those funds. So I'm hoping no matter what happens on the federal level, they would at least honor our contract. And John will speak more to overall schedule. Part of it's obviously pending on this meeting today, and I mean how it goes. But we're looking to obviously utilize those funds as soon as we can in case they pull back. Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
So my question is like, we have the piece of land at Buzzet, Paul Russo, Independence Park. And how does the PFAS affect the land at Buzzet, even though we never were involved or engaged in using it?
Excuse me, Paul. I'll
Yeah.
go to the public comment later on. This is
Okay,
just the
sorry.
presentations with the commissioner. Thank you.
Apologize.
No problem. Any other questions from the commissioners? Okay. So by way of some background, we have a couple of slides here. Let's give you an update on where we're coming from and what the issues are at the site. So again, here's Flint Rock Pond. Here's the site here. Hopefully you can see the outline of the site, the county's fire training facility site here. Much of it is paved. You can see the pavement here. And the pavement was integral with a strategic, I should say, with a capping system to prevent surface water infiltration into the subsurface. There is a small part of the site down to the southwest corner here that was not paved, but is still impacted by PFAS constituents. So the county capped that using a membrane, a poly membrane, and then protected that membrane using some stone and cover. So essentially the area that contains residual PFAS in the subsurface has been capped to prevent infiltration. And that prevents infiltration in the vertical dimension. What we're trying to do now is to limit its migration in the horizontal dimension. So with that said, this is what you're looking at here is a groundwater contour plan showing the direction of groundwater flow. And in general, groundwater is flowing from the northwest towards the southeast or from Flint Rock Pond towards Mary Dunn Pond. And there are some localized disturbances related to, in the flow field, related to pumping of the nearby drinking water wells out there. I'm sure you are all familiar with the town's drinking water wells. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go through. The next step, this is a plan showing what we know about the extent of contamination as we speak. This is our most recent site-wide groundwater monitoring round results. And what it shows is that as expected, the highest concentrations of PFAS constituents, the sum of the 6 regulated constituents, we call that PFAS 6 for shorthand. The highest concentrations are emanating from the site, mostly in the southern to middle part of the site, and migrating with groundwater towards Mary Dunn Pond, as well as towards the drinking water wells here. And this has been something that's been going on for a long time because they've been injecting or releasing or had released PFAS into the subsurface as part of the fire training activities, long ago, as Paul talked about. The public is not at risk because currently the town water department has wellhead treatment for all groundwater pumped from these downgraded drinking water wells. So they're treating it, removing the PFAS before the public consumes it. So the public is drinking a very high quality water. So this, right now, the risk to the public has been mitigated. What we're trying to do here is further support that and further reduce long-term risk here and mitigate further migration from the site towards the wells so that the concentrations downgrading here will continue to dissipate over time once the source has been cut off. So that's our strategy here. And we'll go to the next slide, which zooms in on the site a little bit more. So here's our site again. Here's Flint Rock Pond. Here's the drinking water wells in these circles here. And you can see where we have drinking water wells all the way down from the east and southeast of the site. We actually have some to the west of the site for the Barnstable Fire District wells. And there are additional wells further to the south, beyond the Hyannis Airport. Again, the goal is to cut off migration from the site towards these wells as we after installing this, and further improve groundwater quality downgrading to the site. As I mentioned, that the site has been capped, including the hotspot area. It was regraded to improve drainage and better control drainage. We have a groundwater pumping and treatment system that's running. It has been running for many years. It includes one small diameter well here that's extracting groundwater in the attempt to try to reduce flow going further beyond it. That extracted water is then pumped to the site where it's treated through a carbon treatment system to remove the PFAS constituents and then re-injected into the ground as a much higher quality water. We did initiate a pilot test for the remedial action that we're proposing here today. We did a small pilot test in the southeast corner of the facility here. That remedial action, we're abbreviating it as a permeable reactive barrier, so PRB. And what we did there is for a 30-foot section, we installed wells up gradient, down gradient of it. And then you'll hear, our plan is to inject a small fine grained or fine particle version of activated carbon, much like the town uses to treat the water currently at the wellhead, much like you would have in any type of carbon filtration that you might have in your homes. And so we would inject that into the ground using a very small rig, no digging, no construction, just driving or pushing a small diameter probe to depth, and then injecting the carbon using as a slurry. And that pilot test has been very successful to date. We're showing that by doing that, we are effectively treating the groundwater in situ. So concentrations up gradient are much higher than down gradient. In fact, the last round of data we received for the pilot test shows that down gradient of the injected carbon, we have non-detectable concentrations of PFAS. So that's as good as we could expect. So with that encouraging result from the pilot test, what we'd like to do is expand that to a full-scale protective measure. It's worth noting that while we're doing this, there are lots of interested parties involved with this job. It is certainly not just us. So we are working, this under the review and cooperation and coordination with many local and federal agencies and interest groups, including the DEP, some of which are on the call today. So if you have any questions for them, they're available to answer your questions. We're working very closely with the airport, obviously the fire district, because they have wells upgraded to us, so they're working very closely with us. We have members of the U.S. Geological Survey reviewing our geological work, including our numerical modeling. The Hyannis Water District, we're working very closely with them, given it's their wells down gradient of us. And there's some concern from our neighbors in the town of Yarmouth. So the town is auditing our work. And there are many local groups that are interested and have provided us with good feedback, and we share information with them. So it's really, we're very happy that right now it's a very productive group of people working together to achieve a common goal, which is to find out where the stuff is headed and how to mitigate it as quickly and as best we can. So that's all a very positive thing. So what are we proposing to do here with with this site? And again, this has all been shared with the public groups. Well, as I said, given that we have nearby drinking water wells, we are doing this immediately under an immediate response action under the Massachusetts contingency plan. We don't want to wait until the end of the project and do it under a phase 4 under the MCP. We want to get it done sooner than later. As soon as we can get this done, the sooner we can mitigate further migration of the contaminants to the south and towards the drinking water wells. That's everyone's best interest. And again, the proposal that what we're proposing is to install or to inject PRB. And again, that's the colloidal activated carbon, and all that means it's activated carbon that's been ground down to a very, very small particle size, such that it is what's called colloidal, and it can be mixed into a slurry and just injected into the ground as an aqueous-based slurry. So why are we asking for an NOI right now? Well, our alignment for the PRB extends within the buffer zones of Flint Rock Pond, as well as in a wetland area to the north of us. And for those reasons, and we feel that the benefits of installing the PRB are certainly well worth extending into those buffer zones, and that's why we're asking permission to do that with you folks. So with that, I'll ask Steve Lecko to chime in and talk you. And Steve is a wetlands person, and he can fill you in on the details of what we're doing here.
I have a question.
Sure.
Are you going to show us a map of where this?
We are.
In other words, yeah, okay. I'm interested in how big of an area.
It's coming. It's coming.
It's coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have a question also. In the previous slide, you're showing what you call a water and oil repelling tail. So you're actually altering the chemistry of the carbon somewhat, right?
Dawn, could you go back to the previous slide? I think it was the one that had the PFAS formula on it.
Yeah, the next one.
Nope.
Yep.
Down.
Oh, right. This one.
There it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
So just so you understand, ma'am, the PRB that gets injected in the ground, what it does is the PFAS contaminants adsorb to the carbon, so it locks it in place. It doesn't really change the groundwater chemistry outside of removing the contamination that's in the water, in the groundwater, that has the affinity for this granular activated carbon that's going to colloidal activated carbon that's going to be injected.
Right. I'm asking about the formula that you showed.
Yeah, the formula that you're seeing is a generic formula for PFOS, which is one of the PFAS constituents that we're trying to remove from the groundwater. Okay, right. That is not what we're injecting. That is just a graphic that shows what we're trying to remove. And PFAS is a surfactant. It has a charged tail and a negatively charged head and a charged tail, and so all that's what this is showing, is that we can remove this class of compounds using activated carbon, much as they currently do at the wellhead for the drinking water wells, and like you do in your town, in your homes, or in your Brita filters and things like that. It's a very common treatment method, and we're just using a different approach to inject it in the ground in situ.
Yeah, I understand. I thought that this was some sort of a formula talking about something that you were injecting.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, good. I probably, yeah, we put that in there because it's an interesting illustration of the contaminants we're removing.
Right. Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay. I just have one quick question. Are you using the similar GAC that the Hyannis Water was using in the GAC contactor?
Well, it's similar in that it's all carbon. It's all activated carbon. It's dissimilar in that what the Hyannis department, the Hyannis Water District is using is a more coarse particle than what we're using. What we're using, and I'll hold it up to my camera. I hope you can see this. Can you see this? What we're using is a very fine particle that looks just like black water, simply because the particle size is so fine. It's 20 nanometers.
but the types of the carbon, the source of the carbon that they prepare is the same type, right?
Yeah,
The
pretty
TAC
much. Pretty much everything is
TAC versus
using
how to
coconut
activate
right
the
now.
carbon.
Yeah.
Okay.
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 All right. So I'm Steve Blecko, professional wetland scientist. I'm going to talk briefly about the wetland resource areas that we observed on site. On April 10th, we had two wetland scientists out on the site to flag the wetlands. These are the resources we found at Flint Rock Pond. We flagged the bank. We also observed in the northeast corner of the site an isolated vegetated wetland, which also qualifies as isolated land subject to flooding. And within that, there's a potential vernal pool. We mapped out the 100-foot and the 50-foot buffer zones, and portions of the site are within natural heritage priority habitat. So we submitted a MESA checklist to Natural Heritage on April 24th. We don't have a response yet back from them, but we expect one shortly. So next slide.
And we also don't have the DEP number yet.
Okay, yeah, that was going to be my question. So, okay, so hopefully we can get that shortly. So this is an illustration of our site and the PRB reactive barrier location. John, if you want to point that out.
It's the white dots here that extends along the eastern property line and then cuts down and covers the southern line as well.
Okay. So that whole system is going to be installed on existing pavement or otherwise disturbed ground. So it's not going to be work in the vegetated areas. The bank of Flint Rock Pond, it was delineated by the blue flagging A1 through A27. You can see it's very close to the edge of the pond. And from that, we extrapolated the 50-foot and 100-foot buffer zones, as you can see on the left-hand side. And in the upper right-hand corner is that other wetland that I was speaking about, which is an isolated vegetated wetland, which also would qualify as LSIF in our opinion, because we think it's more than a quarter acre in size, and it appears to impound water more than 6 inches deep at any time during the year. And within that, we did find one small isolated pocket of standing water, which we have deemed as a potential vernal pool. Now, the proposed activity doesn't fall within any of those resources areas, just the buffer zones to the LSIF and buffer zone to the bank of Flint Rock Pond. And those are shown in those light blue circles right there and then down there. And during the installation of the PRB system, we will be installing ENS controls, compost filter socks along the edge to keep any materials from washing out back towards the pond. So it's a relatively low impact type of installation, and we're not doing any work within those resources, just within the buffer zones. So that's why we're here before you for your permission to do this work within the buffer zones.
Thank you.
Any questions on that?
I have a question.
Sure.
If I
Go
might.
ahead, Bill.
Earlier you showed a map showing the plume, and it was 100. You had the plume, and it was halfway down, at least to Mary Dunn Pond.
Yes.
And there was a fairly large section that 1,000. It was 1,000. Is that nanograms a liter? It goes way beyond that.
It does.
And it's 100. Quite a bit more. And one question is that isn't it kind of a question of the horse? getting out of the barn? I mean, it's almost like how much are you going to be containing if you put this barrier in? I don't have a problem. I mean, it's good. Try to keep as much as you can in from spreading, but it seems as if there's going to be a lot of PFAS that's already out of the barn headed in the direction of the wells.
You're correct. And the reality is it's been heading towards the wells for decades because they've been using, they used PFAS out there for so long before it was detected. So our goal today is to cut off the source of it, which is the soils with residual PFAS at the site. So we're cutting it off on, from creating more water by putting in the cap so that precipitation infiltration doesn't get mixed with residual PFAS in the soils and create, add to the source of the.
Can you show on that? Excuse me.
That?
Can you show on that map more or less where this permeable area?
Sure. You can see the property boundary here is in the black. You see it here?
Yeah.
And it goes down here and over to here and then back up along the shoreline of Flint Rock Pond.
So it's on
our
that
boundary, our PRB is going right along this boundary right here.
And is it a lot more concentrated to the left of that line than the right? So
to the left of it, that's the source area.
And that's going to be 2,000 or 5,000, blah, blah, nanograms.
Or higher, yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
John?
So the goal is once we put in the barrier here, is that will allow the concentrations that are already gone, as you said, the horses have left the stable. That will allow that to naturally dissipate and disperse. And we will continue or I should say the Hyannis Water District will continue to treat their water at the wellhead to remove any PFAS. But what it should do is we'll see concentrations in this area of the plume that's beyond the PRB. Those concentrations should start dropping quite quickly.
How about John Abadili? You have a question?
Thank you. Two questions. Number one, what do you expect those levels to be after this barrier is installed? And related to that, I assume you'll be monitoring pre and post that barrier. The second question is, if you didn't do anything, and this is beyond conservation, and in fact, much of our discussion is beyond conservation issues, but very relevant issues. If you didn't put this barrier in, are the wells and the protective barriers that they put in at the wells to treat PFAS, would they be capable of cleaning enough so that the drinking water meets standards?
Yes. What we're doing is, if we did nothing, then things stay status quo as they are right now. Because things are status quo now because this has been going on for decades. So what it means is the Hyannis Water District would continue to have to treat, would still use the same amount of carbon over time. Nothing would change. What we're trying to do is reduce the contaminant load heading towards the Hyannis Water District wells so that they use less carbon, treatment, costs go down, and the residents of the town and the county, continue to see high quality water. They would continue to see high quality water no matter what because of the wellhead treatment, but at a lower cost.
Then let me go back to that first question. After installation of the barrier, I assume you'll be monitoring one side of the barrier versus others. What is your anticipated or hoped for levels beyond the barrier once it's installed, and over what period of time?
Well, this is a relatively new technology. It's been used only for the last 10 years or so, and most of the applications have been within the last few years. I can tell you that our pilot test results show that we're seeing concentrations drop, and our pilot test is downgrading to the highest concentration area of the site, and we've dropped to non-detectable levels on the downgrading side of the treatment area. So we're very optimistic right now, and yes, we will continue to monitor. In fact, we just installed a series of performance validation wells on the down gradient side of the proposed barrier, so that we'll have the correct monitoring points in place to monitor that.
So your hope for result is almost a complete reduction of that post barrier.
We certainly hope. Now the question is at what time frame, and
Right.
and you know, really what's going to end up happening is concentrations will drop up here, and then the issue is we're not going to be impacting this directly. We'll be impacting this indirectly because we'll cut off the source to it. So how quickly will these concentrations further downgrading to the barrier, dissipate? That's the unknown, but whatever it is, it's going to be better than doing nothing.
Okay, thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense to me. Still, haven't got to the one issue that we have jurisdiction over, which is impact of installation in this barrier on the environmental wetlands resources.
Yeah.
I'm sort of waiting to get to that issue because that's where our jurisdiction is.
Yeah, we just felt that it was worth giving you some background to know why we're doing what we want to do and the benefits to everyone.
Yeah, I think on an issue of this criticalness to the citizens of Barnstable, including ourselves, it's a good conversation, and I'm glad you're having it.
Good, thank you. All right, so with that,
John.
Yes.
I got a couple of minor questions.
Okay.
That you are going to install a couple of monitoring wells to check the influence or the affluence of through the RPB, right? PRB.
Yes.
So, can you show? I mean, not right now, but after the re-permitting all that stuff, can you show it on the plan where you're picking up the sample? Because one of the things that I'm thinking of is to add a monitoring report to show us the data of improvement before and after the PRB.
Sure. I mean, all of our work is being done under public review, and all that will be provided to all the reviewers. What we can do is make sure that you get a copy of our submittals.
Okay, thank you.
That makes sense?
Yep. Angela?
Yeah, I'm from DEP, and
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to let you know that DEP has very specific regulations on what the county has to do when it comes to installing the PRB, which is installing upgradient, downgradient wells to ensure that it's actually working. And they will be required to put them in reports.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you very much, Angela.
Luis?
I have two related. One is, do you have any idea how long it's going to take this carbon to become saturated with the PFAS? And it should theoretically become saturated. And so what are you going to do with it? Are you going to dispose of it? Are you going to leave it there? Are you replace it with another sort of interior wall of activated carbon, or how are you going to handle that?
Sure.
Kind of following up on Louise, what are their maintenance plans for this barrier? Because I think you raised a good question.
Yeah, those are good questions. And I'll address them by saying that it is a relatively new technology. There is about 10 years of data for the sites that have been using this the longest. Every site's a little bit different because there are different chemical loads and there are different geological conditions and groundwater flow rates and things like that. All of those factor into the rate at which the carbon is depleted. And you are correct, at some point the carbon will become saturated. What we anticipate is that that's on the order of decades, not years. Okay, not single years. So we have data from the oldest site that's been done on, which is about 12 years old, and that barrier is still working pretty well. It would not be removed because it would be far too disruptive to remove it. This is being injected down to an underlying clay layer that's on the order of 60 to 80 feet below grade. So we're not going to dig that out. What can be done, because this is simply direct injected with a small diameter probe, is you can always add more carbon to the mix if you need it.
Okay, Great.
Can I,
Sounds like a
can I,
wonderful-
can I just add some further clarification or just perspective from the county's point of view?
Go ahead, Paul.
So one thing, we are aware that there is a limited lifespan of the barrier, but also the most concerning piece we have, well, obviously, is the health of the general public and the release, but also the other concern is balancing how do we best manage the site with available funding that we have. So in conversation with GZA, we already have a settlement with the town. So we're essentially paying for operations and maintenance on the Mary Dunn wells. So we're helping support the removal of PFAS from the aquifer, and treating the groundwater to meet drinking water standards. The permeable reactive barrier obviously is a huge advantage because it keeps whatever's emanating from our site going further downgraded and impacting the drinking water supply. And obviously, we're looking to use our funding that we have strategically. The county has spent over $10 million to date on the project, and then obviously we still have more coming with this project and some other IRA response items. So we're looking to best balance everything, and what we're hoping is that there's some new emerging technologies and other things currently being developed. We're hoping as costs comes down and GZA can evaluate some of the new options, there could be other remedies to further clean up the site down the road. But we're looking to right now control and contain our site with the public health concern in mind. And John could further elaborate on the.
I fully agree that the strategy here is to stabilize the site further, because right now it's really, we have too much that's just migrating from the site. So we're trying to stabilize it, reduce the spread of this PFAS contamination, so that the down gradient plume drops, dissipates over time. And I know that Paul is absolutely correct. There are lots of new innovative technologies being evaluated for PFAS. It's such a large issue nationwide that there are a lot of studies, including some at MIT, looking at different treatment technologies for PFAS, and I think we'll see more technologies come onto become available over the next 5 or 10 years, and hopefully we can benefit from that. But right now, let's stabilize it. So between the cap that prevents vertical migration, for vertical infiltration, and the barrier which will prevent or limit horizontal migration, it should be a marked improvement over what we have right now.
Sounds good.
Okay. So with this slide talks about what the barrier is and the details of that. I'll ask Dan Scanlon to walk us through that, if that's okay.
That's okay. Go ahead, Dan.
Thanks, Sean. So a lot of what I'm about to review here has already been discussed in this meeting, but I'll go through it in a little more detail and hopefully it'll all make sense. So the process for installing the PRB involves injection of this activated carbon slurry into the subsurface, which is all below the water table along the proposed alignment, which we presented on the previous slide. The activated carbon will bind to the surrounding soil particles and create an in situ vertical treatment wall. So as groundwater passes through the PRB under the natural hydraulic gradient at the site, contaminants will absorb to the activated carbon, which then mitigates the further migration of contaminate off the site. So the illustration on this slide, I think, does a pretty good job at demonstrating this concept, with the contaminated water represented in red on the left-hand side, the PRB in the middle, and the clean water on the down gradient side represented in blue. The PRB, as it's installed, it's a series of injection points. So it's a direct push drilling technology. It's called a geoprobe rig, which will inject this carbon slurry through injection points below ground, which are spaced about 5 feet apart along the whole length of the PRB. So once those injection rods are driven to depth, the carbon slurry gets injected through the line under a low to moderate pressure, and then those drill rods get pulled up and just inject so that the whole pore space along the wall is saturated with our carbon slurry. John, can you go to the next slide?
Sure.
So the impacts to the surrounding area are expected to be very limited as a result of this work. There are two portions of the PRB which are within the 50-foot and 100-foot buffer zones, as we previously presented. However, none of these areas are in undisturbed areas. They're either paved with asphalt paving, or they're within the cap area that John pointed out, which has a polymembrane and a gravel cover. So in total, it's estimated that less than 150 linear feet of the PRB will actually be within the buffer zones, which is only about 20% of the entire length of the PRB. All of the work is within the fenced-in portion of the property. There's no tree removal that's going to be required, and there's no above-ground construction component to this. This is all just underground injections. As for the project sequence, we're looking at starting this summer. It's about a 12-week duration of injection, followed by post-injection monitoring, which would be done through the monitoring wells that was previously discussed.
It's probably worth noting again, as Paul mentioned, that the county's already under contract with the contractor to do this work. So all the contracting's in place, the papers are in place. We're just waiting for the last bit of design details and permitting details like from you, and we can start doing the work.
Paul, I got a question.
Okay, sure.
Paul, when you say permitting from us, are you all set with the permitting with the DEP?
Yes. So GZA has been keeping DEP very well informed, and we're part of with this cleanup of the site. It's subject to the Massachusetts contingency plan, which is a state environmental code for essentially site cleanup. So we've been following protocols to that. And then also, with this permit, any other local, requirements that we need. And we've also been having public outreach meetings twice a year. So we're, depending, I don't know if you've watched any of those meetings, but we're trying to be very clear and forward facing with everything we're doing, and inform people why we're taking the strategies we are to mitigate the site. So I think the details as far as when we would actually be ready to install the barrier would be a better question, or best answered by GZA, because I know there's some filing we need to get in with DEP and then public comment and et cetera. So they could best answer that part, but we're DEP is very well informed of what we're looking to do here.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the licensed site professional of record is Dave Leone. And so Dave's on the call. Dave, do you want to chime in and talk about the IRA plan and the timing of that?
So this work will be conducted under what's called an IRA plan. It's an immediate response action plan under the Massachusetts Contingency Plan, or MCP. The pilot test itself was also done under an IRA plan modification. The IRA plan mod for the full implementation will be submitted probably within the next couple of days.
Okay.
After that, there's a 20-day public comment period. We'll respond to any comments, submit the final plan, and then we'll be ready to go. So the permitting aspect with Concom and with Mass DEP are essentially running in parallel tracks.
Okay.
Dave, also important to mention that this project is a public involvement project. PIP,
Yeah,
that's the 20-day trigger, and all the information has to be granted to a public repository as well.
Right. That's right.
Thank you. Angela from DEP, do you want to say anything? I saw you unmute a little bit temporarily.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that it's really not an actual permit. I don't know if you're talking about a wetlands permit, but our program under BRBOI site cleanup, they don't really need a permit. What they need to do is submit the plan, and then we approve the plan, or conditionally approve it, or deny it. But we've already approved the initial pilot test, so I don't see any issues with approving this one.
Okay, thank you. I just don't want to have any hiccup because with the DEP and stuff like that. whether there's a permit or whether there's just a strictly approval. I mean, that's up to the DEP to decide it. But okay, our John, your hand was up before.
Yeah, again, apologies because it's a broader question than conservation issues, but how do you determine the quantity of the carbon that's being injected?
That's something that our contractor is working on right now, and they factor in the depth of the treatment area and the porosity of the soils, and they make sure they mill enough of it, and then they look at what they want for a concentration of carbon per square foot, and they inject it. They did some of those tests during the pilot test and to confirm that they were getting sufficient saturation of the carbon, and they were all positive. So that's all happening right now.
If the monitoring indicates not a significant drop, would a possible solution be adding additional carbon through those holes, or redoing this project with heavier levels or concentrations?
Yes. Yes, okay. That is the solution. If we don't get adequate treatment, is to add more carbon.
Okay, all right. And obviously, whatever we approve here, Tom, would require the monitoring be sent to the commission as well, which is a no-brainer for them. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead, John.
Any other questions, thoughts? So with that, that's the end of our presentation to you. I know it's a little bit out of the norm, but we felt that it's such an unusual project that we wanted to give you some background so you understood where we're coming from and why we need to do this and why we want to do it quickly.
No, we kind of understand the project itself because I think a lot of the commissioner here has been kind of involved or learn about all these PFAS from the Fire Training Academy from many years ago. And we know about the problem with the PFAS in drinking water, with the highness water. So we kind of paying attention to that. For myself, I particularly pay attention to it because I'm a water treatment engineer. So I know what that is.
Sure, sure. Well, I hope this was helpful to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Any question from the commissioner? No?
Good luck.
Well, let me go to the public comment. Let me go to the public comment. Paul.
Ooh. Oh, thank you. I apologize for interrupting earlier. Apologize for that.
No problem. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I just Independence Park. We have the parcel that butts the South Flint Rock Road, and everything I think I learned, it sounds like it's really not affecting us. Is that accurate? Because we're essentially north of where you guys are talking about, and it sounds like the water is flowing to the southeast through here. So it sounds like we're really not even being affected by this.
So I'm not sure where you are. Are you said Independence Park?
Yes.
Where are you?
We're on 255 Breeze Hill Road. So like Flint Rock Pond, we're directly north of it. We're the parcel that butts you guys.
Sure. Yeah, we don't have any contaminants up there.
Okay. And
you can see water. You can see our plume right now. We are actually still in the process of delineating the extent of contamination, but we have a pretty good sense for that right now. We've actually installed a few additional wells in the last month or so, and we have a pretty good sense. So our contamination extends, pretty much in this area here, or actually in this area here. There are some concentrations further to the west over here, but we don't think they're related to us.
Right.
The data we have suggests it's not related to us.
All right, great. And I appreciate your time. I learned a lot. Thank you.
No problem.
10:18. Any more public comment on this one?
Seeing none.
None. Paul, John from GCA. I want to get a copy of your slide for our record.
No problem.
Possible. And so let me try this. But we also need a continuance because we're waiting for the DEP number and we're also waiting for the NHGSP comment letter. So I am thinking about May 27th. We can approve this project, but we need to do a continuance because of the DEP number and the NHGSP comment letter. Is that good with you?
I'm going to check my
And
schedule.
that date was May 27th?
The
May
27th.
That is our next hearing date. Assuming they are coming in shortly.
Same time, 3 o'clock?
No, that would be a 6:30 p.m. meeting.
Sure.
Basically, I mean, if the DEP number is here and the comment is here and the NHSP letter comment is here, is with minor comment stuff, then
Sure.
it's pretty straightforward stuff.
Okay. That
Okay.
should work.
So
I have one question for Angela Gallagher. Angela, do you happen to have a sense for when we might see the DEP filing number?
No, but I'm going to walk right across the hall since I'm in the office today, and I'm going to ask.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell them there's a GZA ball cap or something if they get it to us. Okay.
I'll do what I can. Thank you. Yes.
Okay.
So
it might be bright orange or something, but you know.
could I have a motion to approve this project with couple of conditions? Number one, have a plan showing the sampling location upstream and downstream of the PRB. And then secondly is the annual monitoring report. I mean, if you have a different report for the DEP, we can take that to reflect the performance of the PRB in terms of the PFAS removal efficiency stuff. And then we need a continuance to May 27, waiting for the issuance of the DEP number and the NHSP comment letter.
Tom, may I ask a question first?
Yep.
If the monitoring does not reduce to the levels that they hope for and they have to come back and re-add concentrated levels of carbon, is that another NOI filing or an amended order or?
I think that would be just another amended order.
If it's within the 3 years or they extend it beyond.
Right.
Yeah, that would make sense to me, Tom. Okay. Then I would make that motion.
Anyone second?
Second.
Roll call.
Abadili.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Hearn.
Aye.
Kashulik.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
And Tangney, aye. That's unanimous, Mr. Chair.
So it's only continued, the only follow-up continuance would be for the DEP and the NHESP, correct? We've otherwise approved the project.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
Yep. Thank you, John, and thank you, Angela.
Thank you for having us.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Very good conversation and one I hope the public heard. Thank you.
And you have my contact information, our contact information. If you have any other questions, please call us. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for the time.
The second NOI is Shannon Smith, proposed salt marsh protection and restorations at 0 and 87 Short Point Road, Barnstable, as shown in the assessors map 2X0, parcel 014 and 015. And the applicant has submitted a request for a continuance without testimony to June 24th. Could I have a motion to approve the continuance request to June 24th without testimony?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Abadili.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Hearn.
Aye.
Kashulik.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
And Tangney, aye. That's unanimous, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We have one amended orders, Brian and Nicole Conley, to amend order conditions SC 3-6141 to include proposed lawn reconfiguration and mitigations and reconfiguration of existing gravel driveway at 169 Salton Point Road, Barnstable, as shown in assessors map 301, parcel 003. Is Mark with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Hi, Mark.
Good afternoon again, Mark Dibb, civil engineer with Cape and Islands Engineering, representing the applicant at 169 Salton Point Road in Barnstable, with a request to amend the existing order of conditions, SC 3-6141. With your permission, I'd like to share my screen.
Go ahead.
So I'm gonna just give you a quick review of the parcel and history, and then go into the proposed change. So what you see here is actually a previous order of conditions, the plan from SE 35393, which is a proposed house which triggered the current mitigation on site. There's mitigation through this area coming around. There's an open path here as well. More mitigation was required at that time. Then there was actually a COC request. This was an as-built plan. It was closed out. The original OOC was closed out with this as-built plan put on record. And then most recently is the order of conditions that we are talking about, 6141, which is a Wilkinson design restoration plan. The purpose of this plan was just to rehabilitate the mitigation, invasives management throughout the site and throughout the existing mitigation on the property. It's currently ongoing. Wilkinson has been doing some of this work, and that is the current order. So the owner of the property is requesting to modify the location of some of this mitigation to add to it, ultimately have a net increase of mitigation on the property. It's mostly related to just the shape of the rear of the property, but also knowing that this type of work, they have provided excess of what is proposed. So what this plan is these green areas are, again, the Wilkinson design plan, the as-built plan of the existing plants. And what we're proposing is to add the same type of mitigation, vegetation, same spacing, same quantity and density within these blue areas, and just reshape within the red areas. And we've summarized the amount that results in the 0 to 25. It's actually an increase of 207 square feet. And in the 0 to 50, it's not an additional 200, but the overall increase in the 0 to 50 is 221 square feet of vegetated area. Then there's also in the 50 to 100, this yellow area. So another 600 square feet of vegetation. So, we understand mitigation is provided as a requirement within projects, and typically probably is not relocated. In this instance, we are requesting to relocate, but to also add to that, to provide an overall net benefit, as well as achieve just a goal of the property owner. The last piece of the proposal is they're just trying to geometrically create a more even arc, and it's resulting in this very minor strip of about 48 square feet of additional gravel in the buffer zone. It's just a reshaping of that gravel driveway. So we have confirmed that Wilkinson will be contracted to oversee the relocation of these areas. If a plant can be relocated and saved, it will be, or they'll just be providing new plants, or a landscaper will be providing new plants, and Wilkinson will be reviewing and overseeing the work on the property. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and answer any questions you may have.
Can I ask a question before we get into the changes?
No, just 1 minute. Can you leave this picture screen right now, Angela?
Yeah, before we get into the changes in the plan, I guess I'm unclear and my understanding why Wilkinson was a design engineer, and why did we just switch the design team? That I'm not understanding.
We had been hired for a different project that we plan to present in the next coming weeks or months. So we had the updated base plan. We're
So you're doing the boardwalk?
Yes.
Okay, so before we get to that, I'm still not clear on why Wilkinson's changes aren't being presented by Wilkinson.
I was just asked to try to help out and convey this change that a landscape designer is proposing. I think that the team did not feel that Wilkinson needed to be involved other than implementing, the relocation of and reconfiguration. That's the important part, is making sure this stuff survives and continues to grow. It was just a matter of pluses and minuses on square footage areas.
Okay. I understand that. It's just usually we're told we're supposed to be known, and the changes usually made have to be told to the commission. I don't know. Maybe they were. Ed, were those to Tom? Were those told to you? Something that Wilkinson was no longer the design team on this for the mitigation?
It's not so much the designer, but it's the person who's actually, or the group that's actually implementing the work. So we don't specifically say a change of designers. It's more the change of the contractor that's actually doing the work. So we keep continuity in the contractor who's doing that actual planting.
Okay, thank you. I just didn't understand that. Okay, thank you very much.
Louise?
I was drawn to the area where the super wide path had been originally, and I don't quite understand what is going to be left once if you get permission to do this, because the path is going to be, it's not going to be super wide anymore, right? Because that area is in blue. It's going to be planted, correct? Am I correct on that?
Yes.
So you now have a very narrow brown area, which is what you're going to do something with, which I thought was, is that going to be open area? Is that the boardwalk that was just referred to? What is that?
Correct.
Because it ends in the middle of, well, not in the middle of, but within a green area, which is a Wilkinson area that's being worked on right now. So is that the intention?
Yeah, so the intention is the intention from the owner, it looks like, to just center it on the deck. So it's just as far as the physical location, that is the intention. It is intended to just be a 4-foot wide footpath. Technically, I think your point is correct that, excuse me, I'm going to move it around. And I could give you a number right now. It should technically, go to the edge of this.
So the drawing is incorrect, right?
Yes.
And the drawing ends sooner than what you intended.
Yes, and I could get that additional square footage. Right now, it would be about 10 square feet. We'd still have a pretty significant increase, but we could make that.
But wouldn't we require a revised plan showing that as part of the order?
Right. It doesn't really make sense the way it is now.
Yeah, I think we all agree.
Yeah.
We what we're doing is talking about that.
You know what you're doing, but for posterity, have it corrected.
Yep, correct.
Any other question from you want to go ahead? Are you done with the presentation, Mark?
Yes.
Any question from the other commissioner?
It looks like Mr. O'Brien or somebody has a hand up.
I want to go to the commissioner first.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tom. I thought you had.
My comment is like, you're trying to remove some of the previous mitigation area, especially on the bottom side. I have some trouble with it. And I don't have a problem with the driveway work and the proposed future walkway and that sort of stuff. But that's only my comment. But Tom, you have a comment. Tom O'Brien.
Yes, thank you very much. My wife and I are abutting property owners, so we're on the other side of Salton Point Road, and we have a nice friendship with Brian and Nicole Conley. So I did speak with Brian earlier, and so I don't think what I'm saying is a surprise. But our hope is that for the pieces that are to be replanted, and for some of the existing plants they're now not on the screen. They're kind of north of what is in this picture. Those pieces that are to be replaced, if those could just be limited to 5 feet tall, and Brian seemed amenable to that. So I'm here in the hope that the vote could reflect that, from an abutting property owner's perspective.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Chandler King?
Seeing none.
None?
Mr. Chairman.
Could I just
Who's
ask?
That was me.
Ed. Oh.
Yeah,
I was trying to say something. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, jeez.
Go ahead, Louise.
Well, I just was wondering about this yellow thing in the northwest portion. That's supposed to be mitigation?
It's additional landscaping. I did review the plant species in that area. It does have some ornamentals mixed in, but it's definitely all native. And
but are you calling it, is that part of the mitigation for this project?
I mean, this project is not triggering mitigation, but we are adding, these blue areas will be the exact species within the Wilkinson design. So can definitely be 100% considered mitigation areas. The yellow is a mix of those native species, as well as some ornamentals along the outside. But instead of, it is almost 600 square feet of lawn being removed with plants. So that's an environmental benefit too.
Yeah, I guess my question has to do with the motivation for having that planting, and if it's to help the environment. Can you bring the picture down a little bit so we can see that? It would be more logically placed to the east than having it up there in the northwest corner.
The problem is they don't need it for mitigation. They don't need it for approval.
If they don't need it, that's what I'm saying. If it's, what's the reason for it? If it's just for
their own pleasure, maybe whatever.
Right. Yeah, that's fine. But if it's to benefit the environment, it really ought to be, it would be much more effective someplace else.
Yeah, it's part of a visual landscape plan. I believe the landscape architect is on the line if you want to answer, but that portion is definitely not being used kind of as a trade-off. We just wanted to highlight it that, it's less lawn in the buffer zone and more plants.
Okay, thank you.
John, did you say anything?
Me, Tom?
Yes.
No, just reacting to Louisa's thought. I mean, if this was, and I agree with her, if this was a necessary part of the mitigation required by the total project, I absolutely agree with her. But since it's not required for this, they could put it in wherever they want.
Right.
For whatever reason, I guess. That's all.
Okay. Angela?
Yeah, I guess I'm just trying to understand. Our scope is just they want to square off the lawn, so they're moving previously approved mitigation that Wilkinson did to square off their lawn. I understand the visual. And they may be saving some of that because it sounds to me like they've hired the Cape and Islands design team because they want to put a boardwalk in and they're going to be coming back and maybe they need to save some of that lawn in order to use it then. Is that correct?
We're just looking at feasibility study in the boardwalk right now.
About going right across that resource in the salt marsh, because that was Louise's initial question, was about that little thin red piece that will be the entrance to the boardwalk, correct?
Correct, but it is also an entrance right now. I believe there's some foot traffic that they use, the larger one. So it's also just a reconfiguration and centered. You can see it's centered on the deck porch, deck steps. So again, that's also just a visual thing.
Yeah, no, I walked the property and it's
yeah.
very wet there and it looks like they tried to grow grass there and it's not growing in. So it doesn't, it looks like they're putting in a different place they're going to cut through and they're giving back grass that didn't grow in that light blue section in order to switch it out and square off the lawn, which I guess they have the right to do. I'm just saying, it looks to me like this is just the beginning of a plan to ask for more shortly. And that may be why that yellow spot may be used for mitigation later. Correct?
That would require an additional filing, right, Angel?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, anything else will come through.
Just remember this. Take a good look at it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, anything else will come through a new notice of intent filing.
Except, Angela, that yellow spot isn't going to be used, can't be used for mitigation later.
I would agree with Louise on that.
Yeah, you don't need
That's why I memorized this. We'll have a copy of it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ed?
Okay,
Well,
yeah,
okay, so are you going to extend that thin sliver there at where you used to have a wide opening? Are you going to extend that to end at the border of the green area, or are you just going to leave it there?
If I could, if we could still move forward and just resubmit a revised plan with that extended, that would be appreciated.
You're going to revise it to do that?
Yes, that's okay.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I just want to go on record. Staff does not support this. You're removing very well-placed mitigation planting and essentially putting lawn back in its place. It's a heavily vegetated or heavily irrigated and appears to be heavily fertilized lawn. It seems to be that it's just taking away the whole principle and point behind mitigation. They're removing a significant amount of mitigation, replacing it with lawn. They are putting other areas back with mitigation, but I just want to go on record that I would not support that, but that's mine. But that's all my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. I have trouble of the red big piece on the south that being removed, to be part of the lawn.
Yeah, Tom, Jeffrey, I as well. It looks like a football field.
Yeah.
right up against the resource. Right up against it.
Well, I thought I asked, are we talking about mitigation? And the answer was no. That this yellow thing was not to compensate for moving the red areas, that it was just there for aesthetic reasons. So I don't understand. I must have misunderstood the answer that I got to my question.
Mark, if I understand correctly, you're removing the area that marked it red, and instead of that, you're adding the mitigation in blue area. Am I right? Correct.
Yeah. So yeah, this is, in my opinion, the 309 and 319. It's almost a 10-foot extra buffer this entire length. Again, this is actually the closest part of lawn to the resource area. So, that the intention is offsetting this, where you can still, even this, it looks like this red corner is way in towards the resource area, but you can see I added, just for visual effect, this 25-foot buffer. It just barely even creeps into the 25-foot buffer, where there's a decent amount of this little area. There's even the salt marsh does turn and run into the site. So there's another pretty significant piece of 25-foot buffer that's being enhanced. Plus on top of it, there's an additional 200 square feet of this mitigation. So there's far more plants going in than lawn that will go back. But, just wanted to recap on that. But again, back to Luis's questions, it's this project itself is not triggering new mitigation, but it's moving around and adding to existing mitigation. This plan is the Wilkinson plan, and then you don't see it, but the red area is here, and new green areas are here, etc.
Bill?
Yeah, Tom, I'm sympathetic with your comment about the large reddish brown area that's going to be opened up and turned into lawn in the bottom side. When I first looked at this, I thought this is kind of a weird project. I've never seen where there was mitigation was underway, looked good, and all of a sudden we want to trade around. It just seemed odd. And so I visited the site, and I went with sort of a negative expectation or whatever. And yet I could see that what they're really doing is trying to square off their back lawn. I don't know if they want to play bocce ball or whatever, but it's just a squaring off. And you can see that the two main sections that they're going to replant, it really was a very substantial increase in buffer, in that area closest to the resource area. And so I came away with the thing thinking, well, maybe it's okay. But there was something that did leave me a little unsettled, which was the big triangle on the bottom that you, Tom, were concerned about. And I wonder if there's some way of perhaps just, I don't know, it just seemed like because it's so nicely planted and it was looking good, and it's like it's going to get hosed. And I'm thinking that's too bad. And yet, but the numbers add up, so that I find it somewhat difficult to say that it's not a reasonable thing. I'm on the fence. I just have to tell you, I kind of wish there was something we could do to lessen the impact of that large triangle. But I'm a fence sitter on this one.
Tom, could I pipe in?
Yeah, Jeff.
Yeah, Jeffrey. The original plan looks great. This, Bill, I can't even believe you're on the fence with this right here. Sorry. Am I correct that this entire conversation's within the 50?
Yeah, but it's a trade-off. It's a trade-off between.
Yeah, but look. Can you pull up the first, the one that was originally proved? This is a bad trade-off. Look at that.
I agree.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Why are we even talking about this? That's beautiful.
Aesthetically, I think you're right.
Yeah.
But I just think about our regs, and I'm thinking of John Abadili, the mathematics of what we can and can't allow, and yet the idea of trading off just seems weird.
Bill, this entire conversation's within the 50. You don't let anything live in the 50.
But they're adding. They're adding within the 50 as much as they're taking away.
Bill, they're adding peanuts. They're adding.
Okay, I think. Wait a minute, guys. I think if I could jump in, to me, the one question is, from an environmental, not aesthetic, from an environmental point of view, is this a plus or a minus? And if, Jeff, you're concluding it's a minus, even though we're getting more mitigation, the other side is that, well, because we're gaining more mitigation, more protection of the wetland resource, then it's a positive. I mean, I'm trying to simplify the question going through my mind as well as yours, as well as Bill's.
But John, the brownish red area that is inaccurate.
Right.
Some of this is going to have to change anyways, because he's going to have to add some more blue to make up for the brown that he's adding. So it's not the plus isn't as big as it's portrayed to be in my mind.
but Jeffrey, the blue does add up to the red or the reddish brown. It's
No,
it's
no,
it's
no, no. No,
it's a
what-
wash.
No,
And
it's not, because the brown's got to, the brown is inaccurate. He's got to add another 10 or whatever square feet to the brown to extend towards the,
Okay.
to the right.
Well, Jeff, I think that that's exactly the issue, and we need to clarify, at least for Bill and I. Are we getting more mitigation in a valuable area than what we would give up? And I thought the answer to that was yes. If the answer to that is no, then I agree with Jeff. The answer to that is yes, I would sit on the other side of the fence, Bill, and improve it. That's my fundamental question, and I need to hear a clear answer to that.
I would make one last point, and that is that Jeffrey is absolutely correct that aesthetically, as he has to look at the other one, aesthetically, the other one looked better. And yet, from the standpoint of grassy vegetation on the buffer, I'm thinking that it's a wash or real close to it. And so aesthetically, you're right, Jeffrey, but I'm not thinking aesthetics is that relevant to this issue.
And not only that, Bill, but we have no jurisdiction, even under the town bylaw, for aesthetic from a private view. It's a public view only. That's the law.
Right.
So I would ask, can we get a clear answer to the question? Are we gaining more mitigation in those blue areas than we are giving up when they square up the lawn?
Well, we don't have an accurate plan, so I think we're spinning tires on this.
Well, yeah, and I agree with that, Jeff. If he extended the little brown boardwalk area to the edge there, how much more does that add? But
Mark is supposed to do a revised plan.
Yeah,
we want to wait until the revised plan.
Can I answer that question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
I just did a calculation. If I resubmit that revised plan, that'll be 17 additional square feet to that area. So we will still be providing 221 minus 17, an additional 204 square feet of mitigation in the 0 to 50 foot buffer zone.
Over what was approved?
Correct.
Okay. If that's right, then Tom or somebody smarter than me, if that's right, then this is, in my opinion, a positive protection of the wetland resource. It's better protection.
Even if the mitigation that is taken there and is going beautifully is what we're digging up, and what he's giving back is where he put grass and it couldn't grow. In other words, we're giving up the mitigation that actually is in doing the job we want it to on the resource now.
The answer to me is, yeah, I'm okay with that, but I would require the monitoring, Angela, to make sure that that happens.
Well, what about the one that, the blue that's way up north? Wait, that's being removed, right?
No, that's added, and that's on a creek. There's a little.
That's not in a good spot.
No, it's on. There's like a wetland that runs right along there.
Oh, all right.
I mean,
Yeah,
there's right on the border of that property is like a little river-like thing, little stream.
All right.
Yep.
I would agree, Louise, if that yellow that you brought up was part of these calculations, I would absolutely agree. It ain't gonna go there. But if it's not part of it, that's their business.
Right.
Yeah, it's not part of the mitigation as far as the calculations goes.
So we still have somebody with a hand up to Tom.
Yeah, one final time, guys. Sorry, but the blue that I'm looking at doesn't look like it's 200 and something odd square feet more than the brown and the red to me. But I could be wet. I could be wet behind the ears here.
Jeff, that was my first reaction too, just looking at the colors. But I want to be sure that's why I keep going back to it. I want 100% guarantee that the numbers that he's quoting are accurate. So Tom or Ed, make sure you guys looked at that. Because Jeff's visually, Jeff sure looked like a negative to me.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to, I've provided a stamped plan with those areas on it. So, to my knowledge and to the calculations from the computer in our survey, and, I believe those are accurate depictions of the pluses and minuses on the project.
Ed, I'd like to sure, when they submit it, Ed, make sure those numbers are right, because if Jeff is right or visually it doesn't look good, I would agree with him. But if the numbers are correct, as he says they are, and he will resubmit it, then I'm okay with it. Okay, I'll stop talking, but that's from.
Okay, we will check that.
Well, let me try this and see. And I think we discussed a long time on this one. So let me try. Could I have a motion to approve this project, but with the revised plan to include the additional red area that you extended for the Broadwalk area, and make sure that the numbers are jiving for the red and the blue, and the yellow area is not a mitigation area. So if you want to include that, that's fine, but that's not the part of the mitigation calculation for this. And the other abutter was mentioned that, you know, the yellow area and the blue area up north, can you keep it at below 5 feet?
Yes.
Okay. So I make the motions. Anyone second?
Yeah, I'll second it or make the motion, whichever you want. But I repeat that I want Ed or you or somebody to take a look for accuracy, and if they detect any inaccuracy, bring it back.
Yeah, Ed and I will take a look at the number before we final approve it.
Okay. Then I'd second the motion.
Second, roll call.
Abadili.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Hearn.
Aye.
Kashulik.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Tangney. No. Passes with 5 of you.
5-1. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
We have 2 easy certificates of compliance. One is Scotland Kilbecon, SE3-56009. And the second one is Sandcastle Family Holdings, LLC, SE3-6160. Could I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Abadili.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Hearn.
Aye.
Kashulik.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
And Tangney, aye. That's unanimous.
We have 2 sets of minutes, April the 15th and April the 29th.
Clerk makes a motion to accept the minutes.
Second.
Roll call.
Abadili.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Hearn.
Aye.
Kashulik.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
And Tangney, aye. That's unanimous.
Our next hearing is at 6:30 on on May the 27th. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Abadili.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Hearn.
Aye.
Kashulik.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
And Tangney, aye. That's unanimous. It's 4:57.